Hi there, welcome to The Sacred Journey. The Sacred Journey is the program that reminds you that life is a wonderful adventure and each and every experience we have is a unique and perfect opportunity for learning. I'm Joyce St. Germain, and tonight's program is a little different than anything I've ever covered in my 25 or 26 years of doing The Sacred Journey. An end-of-life doula discussion. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. And I'm also going to introduce you to my friend and guest, Sharon McCullough of Sharon Cares. Welcome, Sharon, and thank you for your willingness to come and share a topic that either people avoid or know nothing about. And I only heard the word doula a few years ago, and I thought, oh, it's someone that helps you have a baby.
That's right. Thank you so much. A sacred journey is pretty much what happens in the end of life for many people when they're not afraid of death. So a lot of people are very afraid of talking about it because they think it might happen. They don't think twice about buying life insurance.
Okay.
They don't think twice about planning a wedding, things like that. But they don't want to think about death and dying. So back to your original question, what is an end-of-life doula? So a doula, the word doula, is a Greek word that means a non-medical person who assists someone else. So yes, the birthing doula movement took a long time to get where it is today. But people know about birthing doulas, right?
That's where we've heard the term, usually, if we've heard it at all.
Right. And so I just talked to a birthing doula recently, and I said, how do you explain what you do to people, if they don't know what you do? And she really explained exactly what we do in end of life. So when we're planning on a transition of life, a birth of a baby, or a death of a loved one, we can hire somebody to come in because we know in the end there's going to be stress. There's going to be fears. There's going to be the fear of the unknown. So the doula will come in and help to create a plan by educating you about some of the options that are available. And
now, do you mean the person facing death or the family or both?
Either or both.
Okay.
There are many people who are widowed and have no children, and they might use a doula because they don't have anyone to speak for them. They might hire them as a healthcare proxy, someone to come in and help them to facilitate their connection with the funeral directors, with burial, talking about what they want, and then somebody to help make that happen if you don't have a loved one. If you do have loved ones, oftentimes families have a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
When it comes to making decisions about someone's life.
Okay, and besides widows, someone who's not had children or whose children are not accessible or just don't have support, who's capable of helping, because not everyone has the temperament or the emotional well-being to help someone to plan for their end-of-life affairs, their end-of-life journey.
Yes, that's true. So the question, if I understand it correctly, is like, what other things does a doula do? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm not really asking so much as saying I only have a teeny little understanding just from knowing you, and I'm sure there are people with less understanding than me. And I'm just trying to think, okay, if you were either a single person and didn't have next of kin or a support around you, because I know it could be friends, it doesn't have to be relatives, or maybe the people that you have available to you aren't prepared emotionally to do these kind of things. For some people, this is a very difficult thing. Does your role, so I guess I'm turning it into a question,
Yes.
Does your role stretch into helping them feel more comfortable or taking the place of the role they might play so that they can just be close to the person in whatever way is right for them? How's that for a question?
That's a wonderful question.
That was a long question.
Just like home care, okay, if a person needed some extra support, they would hire somebody to come in to help. If they didn't have family to do that, they could hire somebody to come in. Unlike the certified nurse assistant who does assist with the activities of daily living, preparing food, cleaning, things like that, the doula role is more of a planning, preparation, and then end-of-life vigil, like sitting vigil in end-of-life. But people who take on the professional doula role actually are training caregivers, training family members, they're training neighbors about what they can do, how they can help this person as their life continues toward their death.
There's that missing piece then.
Right.
So you're also an educator.
Yes.
So you
very
inform
much
people
so.
of the role they can play, the things that need to be done. Most people wouldn't have no idea. What do you have to do if you're the one facing end of life or if you have a loved one?
Exactly, and sometimes when someone gets a terminal diagnosis or is critically ill, people are afraid to show up. Doulas show up.
Okay. And I'm sure, I know every family has had one of these. Don't talk about dying, you're going to be fine, you're going to recover. Don't talk about like it's a curse. And it denies and deprives the person from the opportunity to make their wishes. You're smiling because you know you've heard it.
I'm smiling because I know that, but I actually just saw a movie, and I'm trying to recall the name of it. It was over in China. The woman was living in the United States, and her grandmother had been diagnosed with cancer. And in their culture, they don't tell the person they're dying. They're saying, "Oh no, you're going to be fine." And all through this whole thing, the whole movie, there was a way to bring the family together to spend time with Grandma before she died. And they said goodbye, thinking that that was the end. And because she thought positive thoughts, the funny thing is that she did live.
Okay.
So the reason I'm laughing is because, we never know. It's so unpredictable. People die in different ways. People will die from an accident. They'll die from a drowning. They'll die, unfortunately, suicide, drugs, things like that. But there's some people who have a trajectory, if they follow what the medical field has found to be a average lifespan for that prognosis. And when they follow that trajectory, there's choices that they can make on that trajectory that we can help just make them aware and give them opportunities to make choices when they didn't think there were choices to be
Now,
made.
some of the choices, are they perhaps protected by law, and some, no, you can't do that, you can't have that kind of funeral or wake, or you can't bring your body out into the woods, or have, obviously you're not bringing your own body, have someone take you into the woods because you loved camping. Is there anything like that, are there restrictions? Is there other laws that say
Yes,
do this and not that?
yes.
You're trained in that,
The
versed in them.
specialists about burials are the funeral directors.
Oh,
So
okay.
each group of people that deal with end of life that we interact with and refer to, they all specialize. And so in some respects, the doula is also a resource and referral person, because we know what the options are. We just give the choices. If somebody wanted to do a natural burial, and say they lived on 5 acres of land, there is a way that you can pre-register with the cemetery associations to have your property become a cemetery, and you can be interred on your own property.
Okay,
But
you
it
have
has
in
to meet,
advance.
right, and it has to meet certain things about waterways,
Okay,
and there's a lot of restrictions which I don't know the details of.
but funeral directors would be a resource that you work with.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. And the other resource, I did bring this, Connecticut Green Burial Grounds, they have a foundation right now. In Connecticut, they're trying to make burials not trying to make burials, they're trying to go back to the way it used to be and give people the option to have a green burial. And a green burial is just the way it always used to be before the Civil War and when they started preserving bodies to transport them up north so that they're, or down south, so that their loved ones can spend time with them. Yeah, so they have a foundation, they're looking for someone to partner with them to have a piece of property that they can do strictly green burials so that they can preserve the environment by not putting the formaldehydes and the cement vaults and the fancy caskets with the very specialized wood from other countries that they're cutting down tropical forests to get, and the metals and all, putting it in the ground. So they're just trying to bring it back to the way it used to be before modernization of the funeral.
Are people embracing that, you're finding?
Some people are not at all. So it's
Okay.
part of being a doula is just learning what the person's beliefs are and understanding, giving them the opportunities to learn about other choices, and sometimes they might change their mind and sometimes they absolutely don't, and I honor that.
Where does cremation come in? As far as other restrictions and laws, I mean, it's something we've heard about a long time, and oh yeah, Uncle Ralph's ashes are here, or I scattered my father's ashes there, or I want my ashes put here. Are there restrictions?
There are. I don't know the details of them, but
Is that a
I
funeral
do
director
know,
question?
again, I believe that when you're cremated, that you should have designated where the cremains will remain, whether they stay at home, whether they're, being scattered different places, that there needs to be, or being interned into the ground, there needs to be a plan for the ashes. I know that most people don't know that, and like some people I understand also have like gone to the beach and scattered the ashes across the waves coming in, and then what ends up happening is the cremains, they call them, the ashes, actually wash back up onto shore because they're not out far enough. So there are restrictions. And talking about funerals, which is really interesting, is that there's still burial at sea. But again, that has to be prearranged. It's not something, oh, I just always wanted to be buried at sea and just expect that to happen, because then you're not putting any chemicals in a body. And you have to prearrange that with somebody with a boat that knows the laws. But again, it's a very green, natural, environmentally friendly way to dispose of or give back to the earth.
Now, as a doula, is part of your work to help the person fulfill the kind of celebration, party, memorial, honoring?
Yes, yeah, that's another part of it. So when you have a doula come in place, whether you have them come early on in the game or a little bit later, if the person who is terminally ill has the time and energy, they can help us to plan those. And that's such a gift to the people who are living, to not have to worry about what would they have wanted.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So if they had a certain type of music or, yeah, it
Music,
would be nice.
fragrances.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
sometimes there's been instances where we encourage families to bake their favorite dessert so that they can smell it as they're going through their final hours, and that way they have that. There's something about smells and sensory. What's
Yeah,
the
it's one of the
sensory input.
joys. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that would be really helpful, and to give people permission to acknowledge the transition that's about to happen in a respectful and maybe even joyful way.
Yes.
I would think that would be such a blessing.
It is such a blessing. In talking about helping people plan, one of the things that I didn't know about before I became a doula is home funerals, and that there's actually home funeral celebrants
Okay.
that can help you plan, if you die at home, to plan as it used to be, to plan a wake in the home.
Like everyone did a long time ago.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Do you still have to connect with a funeral home?
The funeral director is responsible for
Okay.
taking care of the death certificate. They're responsible for taking care of the transportation. They are the ones that are licensed. A doula is not allowed to be paid to help care for the body. The family would have to do that, or the loved ones, if that's the wish of the loved one, of the one who died.
Now, are there other agencies that have to be notified in case a person died of disease, or is that funeral director knows all about that?
Well, I think that brings us into the next discussion, in that when a person chooses to die at home, especially, there is a wonderful team of experts that know symptom management, and that's the hospice team.
So you're not a member of hospice, you connect with them? Explain the difference, because I know our viewers are going to think
Yes.
this is part of hospice work.
Yes, so the hospice plan of care is when you know that you do not have a cure. You determine that the aggressive treatment would be taking away from your quality of life. And you want to just be at home or travel or do whatever it is that you're capable of doing at that time. And they come in and provide the medical care at home. The doula is an augment to their care. They are the ones that can come in between the visits, or be there during the visits and then help to remind you of what the nurse taught you. Help remind you of how the aide, the CNA, helped with the care, so that you're better capable of doing those things when you're alone with your loved one. There's also chaplains that come in that are non-denominational, and they'll help with any spiritual work that you have. The nurse that does her routine visits at least once a week, more if you're having any active symptoms that need control. And then there's also a doctor that's on the team that guides the medications and gives recommendations about hospice.
Now, you have a background as a nurse.
I do.
Is that necessary to be an end-of-life doula?
Definitely not.
But helpful, I'm sure.
It's very helpful in that I can teach things that maybe a lay person who's doing this profession cannot do. I can offer other services that a non-medical doula can do, but most doulas come from all different walks of life, and they will all have their own strengths. So it's really important to look up the end-of-life doulas and in your area and see who fits.
Now, if someone is listening to this and saying, there's something about what Sharon's saying that makes me want to become more involved or learn how to do this, what would they do, or what would the requirements, what is the training, who would become a doula, who would be what a doula should be? You know how there are teachers that are wonderful teachers and teachers that maybe have the training, and just as there are medical professionals that have the knowledge but not, is it a combination of knowledge and compassion or personality? What's the secret sauce?
I think all of that. I think, being an educator, being knowledgeable, having integrity, showing up, not bringing your baggage, not bringing your ideas, to offer up opportunities to make decisions, and then allow people to make those decisions and stand by them and help them, advocate for them as you go through that final stage. Yeah,
So there is a code of ethics
Definitely.
in all of this.
definitely.
Because I could imagine someone coming in and imposing their personal beliefs rather
Right.
than being neutral.
And we're all human, and there
Yeah.
might be times that might happen, and we have to learn about forgiving and moving on. And just, I think one of the keys of being a doula, or anyone who's going to come into such a sacred space, is to be there in peace and love.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So we do have a National End-of-Life Doula Alliance. It was created by the National End-of-Life Doula Council under the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. So a National Hospice and Palliative Care organization is recognizing doulas as professionals that would benefit families.
We'll share that information with our viewers at the end of the show, and I'm
Great.
hearing we're almost at the end of the
Okay.
show. We have 2 minutes left, and I want to ask about pets. How do pets play a role in this?
We really encourage pets to be with their loved ones. If they end up in the hospital, there's times that we've actually created opportunities for the pets to visit, even in the hospitals. Most hospitals will allow that for somebody who's terminally ill. We also will help with placing the pets, helping find somebody. We'll put it in our network.
So after the person transitions or passes, they know that their pet's cared for.
Yes.
That's great.
definitely.
We're out of time. I think we have like 1 minute left, and I'm hearing a minute. What do you want to be sure that our viewers take away from this? And we hope that you will accept our open invitation to come back and maybe go into some aspects of being an end-of-life doula we didn't get into.
Oh, definitely. There's plenty to talk about. As far as hiring an end-of-life doula, I believe that they can really change the way that your end-of-life care proceeds.
It's a topic that's tough for people, and being able to be safe and comfortable and talking about it with someone who's neutral.
Right.
Someone who's not being emotionally charged by the event because they're already preparing for the loss of a loved one. A lot to think about. You've shared a lot. I am really grateful. You've opened my eyes just in the past few weeks when we've spoken about it.
Oh, yes.
So thank you for sharing with such an open heart. I hope you'll come back and share more.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Sacred Journey. We'll catch you next time.